Hi everyone, I'm Feminista Jones, and welcome to a special edition of Ask Feminista. Why does it seem so dark? Because I'm in my bed. Why am I in my bed? Because this topic is definitely a little more intimate, and I'm lazy. So yeah, here we are, here in my bed. Welcome to my bed. Um, Wait a minute, that sounded weird, didn't it? Oh gosh, anyway, this is a good one. Dear Feminista, I've been intrigued by Dom-Sub relationships for a long time, and an element of my submissiveness has been part of the best relationships I've had. Although it was mostly limited to the bedroom, I'd like it to go further, if not 24/7. In real life, though, I'm a tough as nails type, so no one would ever figure as much. I've always wanted to try putting those desires to the forefront when looking for a relationship. But there's both the you're a freak factor and the BDSM enthusiasts are actually axe murderers on the low, right? Issue of that. So I just hope something ideal comes along without my putting forth the effort. I guess this brings me to my present dilemma. There's a trainer at my gym who I've worked with a few times, and he really pushes me, excessively so. At first I thought he was just an asshole, which maybe he is, but I've come to realize that there's a personal element to our interaction that, at least in my mind, is verging on sexual. I can tell that he's a dom when he's off the clock, and some of the things he tells me to do aren't directly fitness related. It's clear that he likes bossing me around. The best part is that because he tells me to do things, even if he's not watching, I always do them because it gets me off, and it's great for my fitness. The bad part is that I keep second guessing whether or not we're on the same page, trying to adjust my behavior from my usual sass to something else, and going with a flow that I'm not sure is conducive to taking things to the next level and not embarrassing myself. At this point, either would be fine with me because the limbo is maddening. So my specific dilemma is one thing. What's the bat signal for the life? But beyond that, how can a woman seek this kind of relationship out in the world without ending up finding people who are abusive in a bad way instead? Ooh, girl. Well, listen, there's a lot going on in there, right? So, the first part, with you and your trainer, that's hella sexy. I just want to say that. When I first read that, I was like, ooh, get it, girl. And it's so funny because there are fitness doms, so it's really funny because like you'll see their dynamic, and the doms are really like pushing the subs and using the element of the dynamic to motivate them to get into shape and eat healthy. So there'll be things like diet restriction, meal restrictions, things like that they use the influence they have as dominance over the subs to get them to get into shape. And it could be a very sexy thing. It's also, it helps them get on their fitness track. So when I read about that, of course, immediately my mind goes to imagining like this really like sexy fitness guy like really pushing her, and yeah, that's kind of sexy. You said that you feel like he's a dom off the clock. He probably is. I mean, a lot of doms, tend to get into positions like that where, they take control and they have that charge, and I could totally see that with him. But the fact is, you got to think about your reaction, right? And so you're pretty self-aware, and that's one of the things I loved about this particular letter is that she is pretty much aware of who she is and what she likes. It's just a matter of dealing with the socialization aspect, which when it comes to BDSM, a lifestyle that is still pretty much on the fringe, still has a lot of misunderstanding and assumptions that are made. It's difficult to find people that are like you. One of the reasons why I talk about it so openly on Twitter is because I find that I'm able to facilitate conversation where people can connect and they can see that there are other people out there like them. They don't have to feel so isolated, and maybe even make some romantic connections. I mean, I've seen the possibilities of that, so I'm hoping to facilitate that. And the sex positive part of this is just like, this is okay. It's okay to explore that there's more to, sexuality, to just romance, to just being and relationships. There's more to it. There's so many elements and there's so many dynamics that go on that, you can't be afraid to talk about these things, right? Some of the ways that people connect, it's not like you send out a bat signal. It's not like, for a lot of LGBT folks, they wear rainbow kinds of pins and things like that, like the bisexual symbol with the triangles and things like that, or people put pride flags on their cars, or you go to certain stores, they'll have the flags in the window to let people know this is a safe space for LGBT. There are some areas where you'll see like the leather flags, the BDSM flags and things like that. It'll let people know that this is a safe space. But, outside of places like New York and San Francisco and maybe Chicago, a couple of places, you're not going to see a whole lot of that. People these days, they use the internet. They go online. There's quite a few communities online where people in the lifestyle get together to talk about things. One place is fetlife.com. It's a social networking site that's built similarly to like a Facebook and other places, but it's made for people that identify as kinksters and people that really kind of get into the kinky parts of life, the DS, the dominance, submission, the bondage, the sadomasochism, all that kind of stuff. They get into that there. There's a place called collarme.com. I'm not a really big fan of that because I think it's more like, it comes out a lot like fanboy shit, like Dungeons and Dragons sometimes, and I think people play more on Collar Me. But I think people have different experiences than I do. But a place like FetLife is a really good place where you could go and sign up and create your profile. And there's groups. There's tons of groups. There's groups for like everything. There's groups that are like racial and ethnic based. There's groups that are based on specific kinks, specific dynamics, the way people identify themselves. Like you'll see groups for like daddy doms or black female submissives, things like that. So you could join in on the conversations. People do a lot of writing on there, so you can read people's thoughts and kind of connect that way. It's just a way to kind of put yourself out there. And the best thing is that there's like an events section, so you can look and see like what's going on in your local area. Sometimes it's something as simple as going to a workshop. And the workshops, I think, are pretty cool. Like, all the workshops that I've been to have been really informative, really, like, just some cool people getting together, kind of sharing information. And then you get to learn, and you get to meet people in your area who are into this. And you never know, you might meet a boo there. Who knows? But it's really about, we all have to understand what we want out of life just in general. And then I think when we kind of think about what we want out of relationships, we're all unique, right? Everybody has a different thing that they want and a different benefit that they seek. And for some people, DS is the way to go. And it's really interesting because I think the majority of relationships are DS, but that's another topic. I think that the kink element is what adds to it. And so it's not so much as, a woman is submitting to her husband and she listens to him and takes care of the house and things like that. It's a little bit more than that. I mean, that's cool, but that happens all the time. It's a little bit more than that. It's the kink. It's the, maybe the physical side of things. Maybe you like things like spankings when you talk out of line. Maybe you like to be told what to wear. Maybe you like being forced to check in every half hour. Maybe you like being led by a leash. Maybe you like being tied up when you have sex. Maybe you like having your orgasms restricted. Maybe you like being punished when you've gone way off track. Maybe these are the things that fulfill you and satisfy you. And yes, it can be difficult to find people that are into similar things. In fact, I would argue that, especially for younger people, because it's difficult more, I think, for younger people because society really kind of does a number on us at an early age and really kind of gets us into this place where we feel like, okay, this is the way it's supposed to be. This is what I'm expected to do. This is what I should be shooting for. And the truth is that I would say the majority of that time, it's stuff that doesn't even make us happy. We do it because we believe that's what we're supposed to do. And then when that fails, And we feel free to be like, you know what, I did that, I tried that, it didn't quite work. I feel free, I want to try new things. We tend to be a little bit older. We tend to have experienced, quite a few things in life. We tend to be like, you know what, fuck all of this. I really just kind of want to be me. And then we start exploring into the depths of those things and we feel a little more comfortable. We don't feel like we have to prove anything to anybody anymore. We don't have these images that we need to protect as much. I mean, some people still do, and that's part of why it's still on the fringe and it's still the quote unquote alternative. But something in you is released. Something in you says, I'm not going to live according to society standards because these particular standards don't make me happy. And there's something in you that says, I'm going to try something different. And so I tend to find that people who live this life tend to be on the older side, early, mid-30s and above. They tend to be pretty self-aware, self-assured. They tend to really be committed to happiness, to pleasure, to satisfaction, to fulfillment. They're not really willing to make a whole lot of sacrifices for that. They're willing to do what's necessary to become fulfilled. So what I would say to a woman that is trying to get into this life, especially if she's going in as a submissive, I would say do a lot of research. There's a lot of reading out there. Don't read 50 Shades of Grey. It's bullshit. Yes, I'm saying that it's bullshit. There's so many other good books out there about different aspects of the life. You've got the ethical stuff, you've got the story of you've got, even Anne Rice did, the Sleeping Beauty trilogies, which, that was so far off, but man, it was so sexy. It was just great. There's just so many other good quality writing out there. I would say research that. You've got to look up what sadomasochism is. You've got to read the Bible. You've got to read the Quran. You've got to read the Torah. You've got to read all these religious texts, all these historical documents that are full of dominance and submission in relationships, full of master-slave relationships. You want to research the master-slave dynamic, just in general. I mean, we talk about it in cultural context and things like that. We talk about having a slave mentality, but such a thing exists also in BDSM, especially when a woman decides that she's going to submit and surrender totally to someone else who is going to have that dominance over her. You look at how slaves become to love their masters and absorb that. So there's a lot that you want to look into, and it's not just about, like you said, you want to be 24/7. It's not just about having your hair pulled and your arms tied up in the bed. It's about accepting that there is something in you that wants to completely surrender to someone else. And as you described yourself as someone who is, hard as nails and tough and things like that, I absolutely can relate to that. I am a leader. I am passionate. I am a director. I control a lot of things. I totally love that part of my life, and I thrive on that. But there is that something in me that wants nothing more than to totally surrender all of that when I walk away from it. So I can relate, and it's difficult. It absolutely is difficult. You have to decide for yourself. Do I want to be in a relationship that's romantic as well as has a DS dynamic? Do I just want the DS and leave my so-called, as we call it, leave my vanilla romantic relationship on the side? I want it to be in the same thing. Can I do a DS dynamic without there being a romantic connection? Can I even have romantic relationships anymore with someone who isn't dominant or who isn't into the kink aspect of it? For me, it's virtually impossible. I've come to understand that I cannot be with a man who is not at least willing to explore his dominant side and the kinky aspects of that. But I've been in this for a long time, so I can sense it. I can sniff it out. I can tell when a man is a natural dom before he can. And as I said, it goes back to that whole idea of, society has kind of squashed it out of us and convinces us that this is not how we're supposed to be. We feel weird about it. I don't know a single sadist who's comfortable being a sadist. Okay? I don't know a single masochist who's comfortable being a masochist. I don't know anyone who is 100% reconciled with being this way. I struggle with it myself. Because it doesn't make sense. But at some point, I decided that making sense wasn't everything. I wanted to be happy. And that's why we talk about it and reference it as a compulsion. There's something within you that cannot be denied. You may try to change it, you may try to hide it, you may want something different, but you cannot help it, and it is with you, and it is who you will always be. And you can either live your life not living in that truth, or you can find a way to make it happen, right? So I encourage you to go online, do some research, learn a little bit more about the things out there, things that may sound appealing to you. You may have certain kinks already that you're well aware of. I mean, it seems like you get off by, being pushed in that fitness way, and I bet when you combine the endorphins and the sweat and everything, I bet it's really sexy. But you want to look into more things like that, and really research your history. Where does sadism come from? Who was it named for? Where does masochism come from? Who was it named for? Research how the mental health community has treated it. Look at the DSM diagnoses for some of these things, these compulsions that we have. Yeah, I'm excited that more and more people are speaking up about it, finding community. I'd like to think that I'm a part of that, especially on Twitter. I'd like to think that my blog can help people with that, even if I haven't specifically tackled BDSM as much as other things, still creating this safe space. And one of my followers said today, sent me a note saying that, thanking me for creating just a safe space with the blog so that she felt like she could affirm her sexuality as a woman and really go from there and be able to kind of explore what are the things she might be into, because all this whole time she really just didn't allow herself to explore, to grow. So, I think that this is a good thing. I thank you for writing. And I think anybody that's listening to this, this is not a game. Okay? I know it's trendy now. I know people are talking about it now. I know people think it's cute. Oh, a little choke here and there, and little hair pull, and no. That's not simply what this is for some of us. For some of us, this is an existence that we cannot deny, that we cannot walk away from. It is one that we struggle with often. It is one that is rejected by society still. It is one where people will think that you're weird and you're odd. They will question your morals, your values, your beliefs. How can you be a Christian and be into this? How can you be a feminist and be into this? How can you be a black person and be okay with being called a slave? I mean, there's so many things that we get questioned on and attacked for. It's not for the thin-skinned. It's not for the weak at heart. But for anybody that's looking to get into this, start online. Check out some local events. Find out where there's some local events that you can maybe attend, even if you're just observing. There's always a lot of conferences and stuff that go on. You could learn a whole lot. You can meet a whole lot of people. You just have to be willing to do it. Yeah. Thanks for writing that question. I loved it. And I have told people that I am going to talk more about this stuff on the site. I did start writing I wrote a short story called Push the Button that was very well received. Thank you guys. And I decided to turn it into a series. So hopefully you guys will be able to learn a little bit more through these characters. Yeah. So that's that. Thank you guys for watching. Wow, this is one of the longest videos I've ever made, but I felt like I needed to talk a little bit about that, and I hope you guys enjoyed it.